Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. It takes a special political clown to sermonize about cruelty while working with somebody who has a history of cruelty. But Vice President J.D. Vance is clearly industrious.
If you mistreat dogs, that's almost 100% sign that you're going to be a really terrible person. So it's one of the ways we really sort of test people.
And one person by that standard who failed the test is Trump Cabinet Secretary Kristi Noem. The Secretary of Homeland Security and matron of prairie barbarism bragged in a book about shooting her puppy in cold blood.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem defending herself after revealing in her upcoming memoir that she once killed a dog. Noem deeming the 14-month-old pup named Cricket as, quote, untrainable, dangerous, and less than worthless as a hunting dog. Eventually taking the pooch to a gravel pit where she shot and killed it.
She said this puppy ruined the hunt by chasing pheasants and having the time of her life.
Do you think that sharing that anecdote, whether fairly or unfairly, cost you a shot at being his vice president?
You know, I would say that was a story from 20 years ago about me protecting my children from a vicious animal.
Still, it's a story that Noem chose to put in her book a year ago. Noem also wrote about trying to train Cricket the dog with an electric shock collar. Vance was asked about someone else who allegedly did that.
Kaya, please just go, just stop.
Like a soft biker, no electrocution of dogs here.
How disgusting is that? What does that tell you about a person?
Well, I think it tells you that they're not that they're bad people.
Yes.
If you can actually cause suffering to an innocent animal, you're probably the kind of person who doesn't worry about suffering in people as well.
Yeah.
On that point, Vance is correct. Noem has overseen the deportation of migrant workers and the oftentimes unlawful and violent warrant-free arrests. But back to Noem and her doomed puppy, Cricket.
And in the way that it's written in the book, it does sound like she basically hated the dog, and so it caused her more problems.
Tell me you shot a pup because it wasn't used to hunting. You know, maybe you're not a good teacher.
Never mind Kristi Noem being a bad teacher, as the Gang on the Five allege, J.D. Vance went even further about people who are cruel to dogs.
You can tell if somebody's really mean to animals. It's like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing.
Yeah.
Like every serial killer ever has actually been really bad to animals. That's sort of how they started. I remember like the Freddy Krueger movies were really big when I was a kid. Well, how did Freddy Krueger got to start? Like one of the things they show is young Freddy Krueger torturing animals.
Yeah.
I feel like we just sort of instinctively understand.
And dogs know.
Yeah, absolutely they do. If you're not taking care of God's creatures, then you're certainly going to be, I think, a pretty bad person other ways too.
And you might turn out to be a serial killer, Vance says. Did J.D. Vance really forget about Kristi Noem while he was lecturing the masses about the moral rot of people who mistreat dogs? Was Vance really unaware that Kristi Noem, a grand dame of the Trump cabinet, proudly printed her sociopathy between hardcovers last year? If Vance truly didn't know or didn't remember, then Vance's ignorance is matched only by his vanity. If Vance did know about Kristi Noem's past, then Vance's performance is pure cynicism, a pious sneer for the cameras while pretending the gun smoke wafting off of Noem's conscience is only fog from the heartland. Either way, Kristi Noem is reportedly infuriated. According to Trump administration officials, Vance's interview has enraged Noem because it reminds the nation about her controversial past. But even if Kristi Noem and J.D. Vance don't like each other, and Vance humiliated Kristi Noem, one thing is certain. J.D. Vance and Kristi Noem deserve each other. Noem is the pistol-packing paragon of cruelty. Vance is the sanctimonious moralist too stupid or too slippery to notice. Both Trump officials are prime specimens of what you might call the boob bourgeois, or boobs, morons, who also have power. Noem bragged about killing dogs. Vance keeps proudly killing irony. However, I suppose we should be grateful that J.D. Vance for once uttered the truth. People who are cruel to animals are oftentimes people who are cruel to human beings. And in case anybody has forgotten, Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents continue terrorizing human beings. Every day, we see video examples of the cruelty that ICE inflicts on migrant workers, defiant American citizens, and anybody else the Trump administration doesn't like. In Virginia recently, ICE agents stopped a woman driving her 16-year-old daughter to school. They asked the mom, Jackie Andrade, for her social security number. Andrade became flustered, and the agents did this.
Mama! Ma! 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 No! No! Ma!
Those were the cries of Andrade's 16-year-old daughter. Andrade and her family members reportedly have no record of violent crimes or charges. But this is America under Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Kristi Noem. Sadly, the reporter for the New York Post did not follow up on Vance's moralizing about dog cruelty and remind Vance about Noem. But that's okay. Deliberately or inadvertently, Vance has reminded all of us about Noem's character. And whether it's shooting dogs or using violence to arrest peaceful human beings, Noem is the symbol of so much that is wrong with America these days. And for a moment, in an interview, even J.D. Vance acknowledged that we're being led by psychopaths. By the way, Canada just sent Donald Trump into a full-blown meltdown thanks to a television ad about tariffs.
High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Donald Trump went berserk. He slammed the ad and imposed an additional 10% tariff on Canadian goods. Yes, Trump raised tariff prices because of a television commercial Trump didn't like. Trump also made demands on a social media platform. Here's the reporting from MSNBC.
Trump said the ad, which first aired during the American League Championship Series last week, was a, quote, fraud and a hostile act. And he accused Ontario of misrepresenting Reagan's stance. However, as we've been taking pains to note, the audio used in the ad was authentic, and minor edits to Reagan's original 1987 address simply did not alter the substance of his remarks, which were highly critical of the consequences of tariffs. The speech was explaining his decision to impose duties on Japanese goods. Ontario Premier Doug Ford pledged in a social media post to pull the ad after the weekend, with it still airing in the United States during the first two World Series games, Friday and Saturday games that, of course, just happened to be played in Toronto. Trump suspended months-long trade talks with Canada, the U.S.'s second-largest trading partner, on Thursday night because of that ad.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Derek, who wrote, "Calling Trump childish is an insult to children." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about Kristi Noem getting humiliated by Vice President J.D. Vance. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.